Hello and welcome to another Planet Zoo guide. Today we'll be looking into general animal welfare and into animal breeding. So, I've already covered the basics of animal welfare in my general Planet Zoo video, how to start your zoo and all that. But today we'll be looking a little more into everything specifically. And for this, I'm just going to be using my CC breeding zoo here, well, the beginning of my CC breeding zoo that I started in the how to quickly get CC guide. So let's just look at Nia here. I've already talked you through all of these in the other guide, but just in case you didn't watch this one, I'll still be going through everything here. So nutrition depends on the nourishment, so how much food the animal gets, and hydration, does the animal get enough water, and the quality of both. Drink cleanliness is affected by a water pump being nearby. Meal quality is affected by research. Just click on the door and increase it. There we go. Some other things. Social. So the social group is balanced. That means that this whole thing here is okay, meaning A, we've got enough adults, and B, the amount of males to females is like the ratio is okay. Space. The habitat area is correct to house all animals, meaning, there's enough space. That's literally just all it is here. Enough navigable land area. Navigable. No, navigable. Okay, fair enough. Now, an important thing to consider is that if your offspring goes up, this number might go up as well. So if you have a lot of young animals, all of a sudden you might have to increase your habitat a little. Obviously, the larger your herd goes. Offspring, so young animals are not considered adult population. They won't affect your population at all, but the second they age up, they do. So be aware of that as well. Stress. No, stress is a big one. Zebras aren't the worst, but there are some species in this game that get shy and stressed incredibly easily. And this can be quite annoying, if you're just trying to have a nice zoo and you get alerts permanently. There are a few ways to combat that. First of all, don't use glass. Don't use freaking glass. If you want to use glass, you can use one-way glass, which I haven't unlocked here. Which you can then essentially, you click on it, and then you go into barriers, and you can go here into the options menu, and you can actually choose which side you want the glass to be mirrored on. Can't show that because I don't have one-way glass, but it's in the options for the glass. There's also semi-see-through barriers, such as the chain link fence here. Now, aside from the fact that I don't like the way chain link looks, it is an option. What I usually go for is, one glass front or one-way glass front, and then just completely locked off areas. It can still be a problem for some animals. So what do you do if your animals are still freaking out, even though you have one-way glass? Well, if you go into facilities, you actually find these guys here. Do not disturb signs. And these are great. They work wonders, believe me. These ensure that your visitors go very quiet near the habitat. And because of that, the animals won't notice them as much and they won't be stressed. That is always an option you have if your animals keep being stressed. Just put up these signs. They're not the prettiest, but they do work. Other options? Any sort of shelter. Now, you generally do need this anyways, but giving your animal additional shelter, especially shelter where one of the walls is facing the glass front, or the place where the visitors are, is very helpful. And last but not least, foliage. Now, there's been quite some discussion about how exactly does foliage help, and I haven't found any clear numbers on it. But what I do is, like what affects something, how much. What I do is I just try to get some, African grassland is the best example for it. But, I just try to provide, for example, some bamboo for the animals to hide behind. For example, if they're like tigers or something, I would place some bamboo on some sides like this, so the animal would have some sort of shielding behind it. I sadly don't have any tags that would indicate whether something actually allows animals to hide behind it or not, but plants do apparently make a difference. So anything that covers the ground, you know, high up enough that the animal can hide behind it, such as reeds for example, would make a difference. That way you know, like, you can have a glass wall and then you just put down some reeds here, sort of as decoration, and the animal can hide. That way you won't have to do additional walls and it's gonna look a little better. I think terrain also works, like just pulling up a wall with terrain, but I don't know if that's all that interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much all you can do. Just give them enough shelter, make sure that the visitors are quiet, make sure that the visitors can't see them from too many sides. For monkeys, so like lemurs and such, I usually give them a lot of tiers where they can hide and stuff. Just give them a lot of space where they're away from people. Another thing you might want to note in those cases, generally I do place feeders and such inside of visitors. But if your animals are really shy and they always get scared when getting food, place the food somewhere else. The animals will still be visible at some point, but you'll essentially force them right into the people if you place it like here, and they will have to go eat food at some point, right? So that is something else you want to consider. Where you place your water and where you place your feeders and your toys does influence where your animals have to go. Okay, that was a long speech and stress. Habitat. You know, cleanliness, that's up to the zookeeper, and the water. The temperature, you can influence that. But, you know, terrain, yeah, terrain setup from here. The plants and the hot shelter. So hot shelter is this thing, right? If you have offspring, you need more hot shelter. And this can be annoying at some point, because especially if you have like tortoises, Galapagos tortoises for example, you will need so much shelter. Now here are some general rules for shelters. Technically speaking, this is a building rule as well, but I'm going to explain it anyways. Let's just stop this and take our little zebra here, and let's take one of these walls that has a, you know, like a walk-through arch, right? Our zebra could fit through this arch lengthwise. I mean, this one isn't fully spread out, but I think you can imagine that it's going to be able to fit through, right? Meaning that we could use this as an entrance. Using the wall door, the zebra couldn't fit through lengthwise. So what I'm saying is, if the animal's full length cannot fit through the door width-wise, you can't use it. Very, very annoying with saltwater crocodiles. I don't know if they have numbers in here. There. They're 5 meters and 5.20 meters long, meaning even a full free space of wall is not enough. So, like, if I occupy one of these sides with a 4-meter wall, and it's still a 4-meter wall next to it, my crocodile won't be able to get in, even if it could easily fit in lengthwise. So that is something you have to consider when building your own shelters, and please do consider it. Additionally, you have to take into consideration height. Like, a giraffe couldn't fit in here, probably. You know, males usually are larger, longer, bigger, whatever. So take that into consideration. And also, every animal needs a certain amount of space in the shelter. Even if, you know, no animal is currently using this shelter, I had to build this one to, technically speaking, have space for all of them. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Some animals are really, really picky when it comes to shelter, so just play around a little bit, move it around, try different types of shelters. Try, you know, different walls, you know, maybe construct something yourself. Stuff like that. Just be sure that you give them enough shelter, because it does prevent stress as well. That was another long one. Enrichment. So these you can see here in the enrichment option. Now, here's something. You see that I've placed all of these ones, right? Let's say I place another grapple. It's not going to give them more points, but let's say I place another feeding ball. It is going to increase the points. Why? Because for each animal, like, each of these objects only works for a certain amount of animals essentially. So, you know, we only need one herbcent marker. To place a second one, it's not going to change the numbers. Oh, it does actually. Okay, so the grab ball doesn't, the herbcent marker does. Sorry. And you have to figure that out manually by going in here. If you have a lot of animals, you will need more enrichment, and you can also place more of the same object. However, the animals will after a while not enjoy using the object anymore. If they have the same thing in there for multiple years, they'll grow tired of it, so you know, try to use 2 of the same object instead of 2 different objects, and 1 each, just to be able to switch them out when you need to. Bedding has no effect on the animal whatsoever. You can place it, you don't have to. What's important is that it's dry. It's not dry, there's absolutely no reason to have it. So let's take a look at the important heat maps for our animals. That is obviously the animal welfare, the breeding, which shows you young animals and all the animals that can breed. It also like shows you potential inbreeding, but you shouldn't have that. This place here. Once again, this transversable area applies to, or is like figured out by the animal model, which always considers length in all directions. So if the animal is 5 meters long and 2 meters wide, it will be 5 by 5 meters. That is important once again for building habitats and such. And some objects, as you can see here, have a space that the animals simply cannot go into. So if your animals can't access something, check this. Shelter. Sometimes a place that's not actually a hut can be a shelter. So, you know, always good to check, and habitat cleanliness, obviously. Temperature can be important, water cleanliness is very important. But none of this really matters, so that's the heat maps you want to take a look at when you look at animals. And last but not least, there's the interspecies bonus. Meaning, if we go for our plain zebra, and we put like any of these animals in here, it's automatically going to be happier. Now it is going to get to 100% without this being filled, which is why this is green. But it can balance out some other issues in the enrichment category, so you know, just keep that in mind. You don't get interspecies bonus from animals that are not on this list, but you might still be able to put the animal in a habitat with animals that are not on the list. For example, I had a habitat with red pandas, giant pandas, and pangolins, and it worked just fine. It's a little bit of balancing, but it does work. Okay, so next, animal breeding. If you have animals, which you do because this is a zoo, they will mate, and you will have offspring. And you might think to yourself, oh, great, she has golden stats, you know, high immunity, high fertility, great, I'm gonna keep her for breeding. Well, army, yeah, maybe not that good. But what affects breeding specifically, what affects mating habits, and how do you get leucistic animals? And how do you get golden animals? So, starting off with everything that affects mating, your welfare is the first major thing. If the welfare is low, the animals won't mate as likely. The subreddit has somehow discovered that apparently having high meal quality is also important. So a lot of people said that like when they changed it from grade 2 to grade 3, all the animals suddenly got pregnant. I haven't checked it yet, but it is something I can pass on to you guys. All the other things are a little species specific. So if we go in here, we get to compare mates, and we get a male in here, you'll see that there is a research fertility bonus and a species fertility. This value is immutable, so it will not change. This species simply has average fertility in captivity. This is essentially something you can read up in the Zoopedia. If we go back in here, it will say very easy reproduction. I don't think it actually says anything about fertility, so you know, that's a little unusual, but let's just go with it. They have average fertility. This species has average fertility. And it's very easy. Mating is very easy, reproduction is very easy, yeah. So, they don't really care. There's some animals that have like, yeah, easy, very easy. Let's see if we can find one that's not easy. I feel like all of them are if you just meet their requirements, but are there any that are like difficult? I'm sorry, I did not check this beforehand. Let's just check a few animals. Even the monkeys are easy. The pangolin, for example, that one's difficult, right? So, that is an animal where because they'll mate less and because they're less likely to get pregnant anyways, you should care more about all the other things because that is one thing you can't influence. Now, in your genetics, you do have fertility, and this fertility doesn't change how often an animal will mate. This only changes how likely it's going to get pregnant, so something you can see here, right? Yeah, because she's sick, but he's sick, I don't know, whatever, but the idea is, under perfect conditions, because none of them have very high fertility and I haven't finished research, there's still not a 100% chance of successful conception. I'm sorry if you can hear the police car in the background. I don't live in a ghetto, I promise. Or like some sort of, I don't live next to prison either, anything like that. And your other stats, obviously, you know, like longevity normally matters if you want to breed animals because, you know, you want animals to live long to have a lot of offspring. You can have some physical stats, some lifetime stats. So that's, I think, the things I can demonstrate on the animals. Read the research. You can just go in here and then you'll see that you unlock breeding research bonus, 15 and then 30%, so that gives you a total of 30%. It's not 15 plus 30, it's just a total of 30. And no, if we go in here, I've already said this in my CC breeding guide, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm gonna do it again. There are some things you should consider. You know, you might be sitting there, you got your African buffaloes and you're wondering, where is my offspring? Well, you probably have a male bull that is the alpha, because you're only supposed to have one, right? But he's over 15. So, he's still the alpha even if he's over 15. You still can't have a different one, even if he's over 15. And he's sterile. Yay! This is something that you have to consider with some animals. For a lot of them, you know, it's not a big number. For some of them, their sterility is death. But, you know, if you are breeding, you might want to consider that. You know, you might just want to take that male out the moment... Sorry. The moment he's 15. I just find it funny that their life expectancy is 40, but their sterility is 50. Well, it does go up if you know, have high sperm. But, you know, that is something you might want to look through. Also, the reproduction in captivity. And while we're here, okay, something else that's important, also already mentioned in the other guide, I'm repeating myself, doesn't matter. If you are breeding and you are keeping the offspring in the same habitat as the adults, you have to take a look at the age of sexual maturity and the interbirth period. Interbirth period is how long does it take from the offspring being born to the animal getting pregnant again. Like possibly getting pregnant again. And that is in this case 12 months. And the baby will age up in 1 year. That's perfectly fine. Let's look at bonobos. Now, bonobos have a year of age of sexual maturity at 11 years. And an interbirth period of 60 months. Now, those of you who do maths know that 11 times 12 is not 60. So what does this mean? Well, your female bonobo mother will not get pregnant until her baby has aged up, until it's like an adult of sexual maturity. So 11 years. If they are in the same habitat. If you remove them, put them in a different habitat, it's only going to take 60 months. So, you know, if you're specifically breeding for something, that is important to consider for some animals. For some of them, it doesn't matter at all. For some, it does. I'm not doing the maths, but you can just look through it yourself. You know, like, tortoises. I found that for some of the animals it doesn't matter. Like my tortoise female will still get pregnant even if her babies haven't grown up. But just to be safe, if I actually try to, get animals to have offspring, I separate them. Because the baby might block the mom, especially with giant pandas. Like, that's 2 years and that's 6 years. So I make sure that I always put the offspring into a different habitat if I'm actually actively breeding. Other important things, of course, how many males can you have? Do you even want to have multiple males? It's... God, this place is dirty. Having multiple males, of course, is useful if you want to have 2 different gene pools so that you can still cross them. But I usually do that in different habitats. So like, all the females 1 male, all the females 1 male, and then I cross them again. Right. That is pretty much all that affects this. Of course, with the fertility stat, that taken into consideration. Now, let's take a look at the last 2 points because it's already 21 minutes in. Why am I talking so much? Oh my god. Real quick. Leucistic animals. In franchise mode, leucistic animals are genetically based. In Sandbox, they have been randomized. Apparently, with a patch, they are not randomized anymore, and they're also genetically based. Now, there are people who keep inbreeding again and again and again and again and again to get leucistic animals. It can work. It can take 100 generations of the animal too. Like, it's gonna take a while. If you have a leucistic animal, if you ever had a genetics class, the whole being white part is a recessive gene. So if you mix 1 normal zebra and 1 leucistic zebra, all the offspring will be normal looking, unless the normal zebra is already a mix between a normal and a leucistic zebra. It's the basics of genetics, but it is important if you want to keep leucistic animals. If you want to continue having them, you actually need a larger breeding pool, right? Because let's say you have 1 leucistic male and 1 leucistic female, probably from the trading post, you get 1 leucistic offspring, or like 10. But then you'd want to have a second breeding pool to actually cross them without inbreeding. Which is why a lot of leucistic animals on trading post can be inbred in animal trading. Be careful if you're like looking specifically at not what I wanted, at leucistic animals. Oh, that's actually really cute. Like, these here have good stats, so like there's no problem with any of those. No, they all seem fine. But some of them, especially if you go like towards lower prices or towards rarer species, might have decreased fertility or immunity because people didn't really make sure that they didn't inbreed. Also, a thing you want to consider if you do buy both or however many animals you want to inbreed from the trading post, make sure that they don't inbreed by making sure you get them from different people. Okay, so yeah, like this one for example. You do get a warning that it already has very low fertility. That is just something you want to watch out for. Also, if you yourself do that, you are going to end up with some offspring that is pretty much infertile, or like has low stats like this one, which you can't use that for breeding anymore. So if you want to have a lot of leucistic animals, have at least 2 gene pools that you can sort of play around with, and you will have to regularly buy in new ones, usually. How to get 4 like 100% on all stats? It's a little randomized. If you go into genetics, and let's just pick one of the females, you'll see that there's a gene potential, right? Now it can go higher than either of their maximum, it can go lower than any of their minimum, but the basic idea is you want to make sure that both animals have decently high stats when you start out with. So what I do is I buy a female that is like good in size and longevity. No, actually size and fertility. You want a good high fertility. And a male that's good in longevity and fertility. And then you wait for the one baby that has high size, longevity and fertility. And then you get another one that has high longevity and immunity, and then you mix those until you get an offspring that has all of those stats higher, and you just slowly work your way up. Getting 100% in everything is random. You have to, get the gene potential up, but even if it's at 100%, it is possible to get 100%. It will never always be 100% on all of your offspring. Even if you breed to 100% animals. Just wanted to put that out there. Also, an animal can be golden if one of the stats is very low. Where is my vet? So do keep that in mind as well. Like, you could have low fertility and it would still be golden. These animals do have a genetic database. Somewhere? Can I find it? I don't know. There, a genealogy. And like, you can go into this and like look through all of it if you're very dedicated. You can totally do that. Figure out your own system for it, but it's not usually required. So yeah, I think that's it for this relatively long guide. I'm sorry that I was talking so much, but it is a rather long topic. If I forgot anything, if you have any questions, just put it in the comments and I'll try to answer it. I've got a few hundred hours in this game and a fair amount has been spent just breeding animals, so I should be able to answer the question hopefully. And I hope you liked the video, and I hope I'll see you again in another video of mine.